I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. My name is Jake, and I was a proud husband to Melissa for nearly 7 years. We were that couple that looked perfect on the outside. We had the house, the dog, and decent jobs. I worked as a software developer, and Melissa was a marketing manager. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I really thought we were solid. That was until I started noticing the signs, and boy, were they glaring. It all began with the little things. I remember one evening when I got home from work early, hoping to surprise her. The house was dark and there was no sign of Melissa. I checked my phone and saw that she had sent me a text saying she was working late. That wasn't unusual. She often had projects that needed extra attention. However, this time felt different. The vibe was off. I brushed it off, thinking I was just being paranoid, but the feeling grew stronger over the weeks. Melissa started changing her routine. She'd come home later and later, reeking of excuses I had long stopped buying. I had to meet a client, she'd say, her voice dripping with faux sincerity. I'd seen her with colleagues before and they were all professional, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. And then there were the phone calls. She was always on her phone, whispering in hushed tones, her body tense with the kind of nervous energy I'd never seen in her before. One weekend, I decided to confront her. I had a gut feeling, and I wasn't one to ignore my instincts. I casually asked her about her late nights and the strange phone calls. She laughed it off, said I was being ridiculous and that I needed to trust her. This was her go-to line whenever I expressed concern, and by now I was losing my patience. But I didn't want to accuse her without proof. So I took a step back, letting my observations stew. Then came the day that unraveled it all. I was working from home, and while going through her stack of magazines to find something interesting to read, I stumbled across a college yearbook from her alma mater. Flipping through its pages, I found a photo that made my stomach drop. There was her old professor, Dr. Mark Henderson, grinning like he just struck gold next to her younger self. I remembered her talking about him, praising his intellect and charm. But I quickly tossed the yearbook aside and went back to work, trying to focus on code rather than my growing unease. Days passed and I grew more restless. I decided to do some digging. If she was lying to me, I needed to know the truth. One evening, while Melissa was out, I found her laptop open on the dining table. My heart raced as I clicked on her email. I had to know. What I found made my blood run cold. There it was, a string of emails exchanged between Melissa and Dr. Henderson, flirty banter, inside jokes, and plans to meet up. I felt like I'd been kicked in the gut. This wasn't just a passing fling, it was an affair, and it was right there in black and white. The confrontation was inevitable. I had everything I needed, all the evidence laid bare in front of me. I waited for her to come home, my heart pounding in my chest. When she finally walked through the door, I couldn't hold back. "We need to talk," I said, watching her face go pale. I laid out the emails in front of her, my hands shaking. Her reaction was as ugly as it was predictable. She tried to laugh it off, insisting it was just harmless fun, a casual friendship. That's when the rage boiled over. I demanded to know how she could betray me with a man old enough to be her father. The excuses flowed like water. She claimed that I was too focused on work, that she needed someone who could understand her on a deeper level. I felt like I was spiraling, caught between anger and heartbreak. I had always supported her ambitions, and now she was throwing it all back in my face, using it as a weapon against me. In that moment, I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. I wasn't just losing my wife. I was losing the future I envisioned for us. I thought about the dreams we shared, the plans we made, and now they all seemed shattered. I wanted to scream and cry, but I held it together, refusing to let her see how deeply. This cut, the sadness morphed into a resolve. If she thought she could have both me and him, she was sorely mistaken. I decided that I wouldn't just sit and let this happen. I would rise above it, smarter and more successful than both of them. But how? What was my plan? That was the question I had to answer. I knew I had to channel this betrayal into something productive. I had to become the best version of myself, not just for me, but for the reminder of what I was capable of. I wasn't going to allow their infidelity to define me. I would take charge, and I'd show them both what I could achieve. The game was on. As I plotted my next steps, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. I was ready for the challenge ahead, and I was determined to turn this painful chapter into my success story. After that explosive confrontation, I felt like someone had ripped my heart out and stomped on it in front of me. I was devastated, but beneath all that pain, an ember of determination began to ignite. I took a few days to process everything, and during that time, I realized something. I couldn't let my life revolve around Melissa and Dr. Henderson. I had to focus on myself and my future. The first order of business was to channel my emotions into something productive. I had always wanted to pursue a master's degree in computer science, but life had taken over, and that dream had slipped down my priority list. Now, it felt like the perfect opportunity to invest in myself. I dove headfirst into researching programs, applying to schools, and studying for entrance exams. I spent hours in the local library, poring over textbooks and brushing up on concepts I hadn't touched since college. It felt good to have a purpose again. As I immersed myself in academics, I began to notice changes in my demeanor. I was no longer the sad husband wallowing in betrayal. I was becoming confident, focused, and driven. I started hitting the gym regularly, shedding the pounds I had gained over the years. My friends began to notice the shift in my attitude. They rallied around me, encouraging me to go out and meet new people. At first, I resisted. I wasn't ready to jump back into the dating scene. But as I started transforming myself, I realized that I had to reclaim my life. One of my friends, Ryan, suggested we join a local tech networking group that met twice a month. I hesitated at first, worrying that it was too soon to mingle with others, but he insisted that it would help me build connections in the industry. I eventually agreed, and to my surprise, I found a community of inspiring individuals who shared my passion for technology. We discussed projects, shared insights, and sometimes even debated the latest trends in software development. I felt my enthusiasm for my career reigniting, and I was thrilled to be part of something again. While all this was happening, I couldn't shake the image of Melissa and Dr. Henderson together. I imagined them laughing over coffee, her head thrown back in that way she did when she was genuinely happy. It made my blood boil. But instead of letting it consume me, I decided to use it as fuel to push myself harder. I started keeping a journal, documenting my thoughts, feelings, and accomplishments. Writing became therapeutic, allowing me to process my emotions while also highlighting the progress I was making. My acceptance letter to the master's program arrived sooner than I expected, and with it came a renewed sense of purpose. I couldn't believe it. I was officially going back to school. I wanted to prove to myself that I could achieve greatness, not only for my own sake but to show Melissa that I was more than just the sum of our marriage. I was ready to take on the world. Meanwhile, I decided to keep tabs on Melissa. It was more of a need for closure than anything else. I wasn't seeking revenge in the traditional sense. I wanted to ensure she understood the consequences of her actions. I found out through social media that she was still involved with Dr. Henderson and that they had been spotted together at various local events. This only fueled my motivation to succeed. I wanted her to see the man she had betrayed flourish while she was left behind. You think you can take advantage of me? I thought, watch me rise. As I focused on my studies, I poured my heart into my work. I joined study groups, participated in hackathons, and connected with professors who took an interest in my ambitions. My confidence skyrocketed, and I started networking beyond my local community. I reached out to professionals at companies I had always admired, seeking mentorship and guidance. With every new connection, I could feel the walls of my old life breaking down, and I was crafting a new narrative for myself. One day, while attending a tech conference, I crossed paths with a former classmate from my undergraduate days, Ava. We had always been friendly, but this time, there was an undeniable spark between us. She was brilliant, ambitious, and shared my passion for technology. We exchanged numbers, and as the days turned into weeks, we started hanging out more frequently. It was exhilarating to have someone in my life who appreciated me for who I was becoming. Ava and I began collaborating on projects, and it was refreshing to have someone to confide in. I found solace in our late-night coding sessions and deep conversations over coffee. She was everything I needed at that moment, a partner who challenged me intellectually and emotionally. It felt so different from my time with Melissa, where I always had to fight for her attention and approval. While I was moving onward and upward, I started to see the cracks in Melissa's facade. I was no longer the man she could manipulate. I could see her struggling to maintain her relationship with Dr. Henderson, and it was clear that their connection lacked the depth she sought. Meanwhile, I was succeeding in ways I had only dreamed of. Word of my accomplishments spread, and I was offered a new position at a prestigious tech firm, a role that came with a significant salary increase and respect in the industry. I was on fire and I knew it. I could feel my trajectory changing from a heartbroken husband to a successful individual who had taken control of his life. It was empowering, knowing I was both the architect and the builder of my future. I started seeing my transformation reflected in the eyes of those around me. People respected me, and I respected myself. I had become the man I was meant to be, leaving the ghost of my past behind. By now, I was ready to confront Melissa once and for all. I wanted closure and a chance to show her the reality of what she had given up. I had no interest in rekindling our relationship, but I needed her to see the man she had betrayed thriving without her. I reached out to her, arranging a meeting at the cafe where we had shared countless dates. I wasn't sure what her reaction would be, but I was determined to deliver the message loud and clear. I was not a victim. I was a victor. The day of our meeting arrived, and I felt a mixture of nerves and excitement. I hadn't seen Melissa since that fateful confrontation, and although I had moved on, a part of me wondered how she would react to the new version of me. I arrived at the cafe early, choosing a table in the corner where I had a clear view of the entrance. I wanted to be prepared when she walked in. When I finally spotted her, my heart raced. She stepped through the door, looking as put together as ever, with her hair cascading in soft waves and her signature red lipstick perfectly applied. But beneath her polished exterior, I couldn't help but notice the weariness in her eyes. It was almost as if she had aged overnight since our last encounter. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of how far I had come, and stood to greet her. "Hey, Melissa," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Thanks for meeting me." "Jake," she replied, offering a tight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "It's been a while." We settled into our seats, and I could feel the tension hanging thick in the air. The barista came by to take our orders, and I opted for a simple black coffee, while Melissa ordered a caramel macchiato. As the steam billowed from our cups, I realized I had a lot to say, but I needed to remain calm and collected. I couldn't let her get under my skin again. "Let's cut to the chase," I said, leaning forward slightly. "I wanted to talk about us, what happened, and where we stand now." She shifted in her seat, her gaze dropping to her cup. "Jake, I didn't expect you to want to meet after everything that happened. I just thought," she trailed off, searching for the right words. "Thought what?" I prompted, my voice steady. "That I'd just forget everything and go back to being the guy you deceived. I've done a lot of soul-searching since we last spoke. I'm not that person anymore." Her expression hardened for a moment before she regained her composure. "You know, I never meant for things to get out of hand. Dr. Henderson and it was just a mistake. I was feeling lost and he was there. It didn't mean anything." Her words stung, but I let them wash over me. I could see now that she was trying to downplay the affair. It was a defense mechanism, a way to protect herself. I wasn't there to rehash the past or give her another chance. I was there to show her the reality of my life now, to expose the facade she had been hiding behind. "I've moved on," I said, meeting her gaze with unwavering confidence. "I'm going back to school to get my master's degree. I've landed a new job at a tech firm, and I'm surrounded by amazing people who inspire me every day." I watched as her expression shifted from disbelief to something resembling regret. "Jake, that's great," she said, but I could hear the envy creeping into her voice. "I always knew you had it in you." I pressed on. "And I've met someone new. Her name is Ava, and she's brilliant. We're working on projects together, and it feels good to have someone in my life who appreciates me for who I am, not for the man you wanted me to be." Her expression soured at the mention of Ava, and I couldn't help but feel a rush of satisfaction. I was no longer the man she could dismiss or manipulate. I was thriving, and it was clear that my success was eating away at her. "I didn't come here to gloat, Melissa," I continued, my voice firm but calm. "I wanted to show you that I'm not broken. I'm stronger than ever, and this is my life now. You can't take that away from me." "What do you want from me, Jake?" she asked, her voice tinged with desperation. "Do you want me to apologize, to beg for your forgiveness?" I shook my head. "No, I don't want any of that. I just want you to realize what you've lost. You made your choices, and they had consequences. I hope you're happy with them." For a moment, silence enveloped us. The cafe buzzed around us, but in that instant it felt like we were in our own world, trapped in a standoff of sorts. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the regret, the anger, and maybe even a sliver of admiration for what I had accomplished. "I'm not proud of what I did," she finally admitted, her voice quiet. "I didn't think you would actually move on so quickly. I thought you'd be waiting for me." I couldn't help but chuckle, a dry, humorless sound. "You underestimated me, Melissa. I'm not going to be your backup plan or your safety net. I deserve more than that." As our conversation continued, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. I was finally able to voice my feelings, to confront her with the truth of how her betrayal had affected me. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about reclaiming my power and ensuring that she understood the ramifications of her choices. With each passing minute, I could sense her facade crumbling. The woman who had once been so confident in her deceit now seemed vulnerable and frail. It was almost painful to watch, but it also felt liberating for me. I was no longer the man caught in her web of lies. I had woven my own tapestry of success. As we wrapped up our meeting, I stood to leave, and I looked her in the eye one last time. "I wish you the best, Melissa, but I won't be looking back. This is my new beginning, and I'm excited for what's to come." I walked out of the cafe feeling lighter than I had in months. It was a surreal experience, facing my past and emerging victorious. I had taken the first major step in reclaiming my life, and as I stepped into the sunlight, I felt like I was stepping into a new world, one filled with infinite possibilities and opportunities. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, equipped with the knowledge that I could rise above anything life threw my way. And little did I know, this was just the beginning of my journey toward an even brighter future. The days following my meeting with Melissa felt like a whirlwind. I was riding high on the wave of empowerment that came from confronting her. I'd finally laid all my cards on the table, and I could feel an undeniable shift within me. I wasn't just moving on, I was thriving in my new reality. As I immersed myself in my studies, I began to feel the profound effects of my decision to invest in my education. Each lecture, each assignment, felt like a stepping stone toward a greater goal. I was not just learning, I was reclaiming my identity. My professors started recognizing my potential, and I found myself engaging in discussions that challenged my intellect. I was no longer just a participant, I was a contender. Ava and I continued to collaborate on projects, and I found our intellectual chemistry intoxicating. We worked late into the night, both of us fueled by caffeine and the thrill of creating something meaningful. But there was more than just academics between us. Sparks flew during our late-night discussions, and I couldn't deny that I was developing feelings for her. She was bright, witty, and supportive in a way that Melissa had never been. I began to see the potential for a real relationship, something genuine and built on mutual respect. One evening, while we were brainstorming ideas for a software application, I looked up from my laptop and caught Ava's gaze. Her eyes sparkled with excitement, and in that moment I realized how much I had come to appreciate her presence in my life. "You know," I began, my heart racing, "I really enjoy working with you. It's refreshing to collaborate with someone who gets it." She smiled, and I could see her cheeks flush slightly. "I feel the same way, Jake. You challenge me to think outside the box, and I love that." Before I knew it, we were engaged in a conversation that felt far more personal than professional. I could sense the chemistry crackling between us, and it made my heart race. What do you think about going out for drinks after our meeting next week? I blurted out, surprised at my own boldness. Ava's face lit up like a Christmas tree. I'd love that. Let's make it happen. As I walked home that night, I felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. It was a new chapter for me, one where I wasn't just defined by my past. I was ready to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead, and for the first time in a long while I felt hopeful. However, just as I was beginning to settle into this new chapter, I received an unexpected phone call that shook me to my core. It was Ryan, my friend from the tech networking group. "Hey Jake, have you heard about Dr. Henderson?" he asked, his tone serious. I felt my heart drop. "No, what happened?" "He's in some serious trouble. Apparently, there were allegations of misconduct at the college. Students are coming forward with complaints about inappropriate behavior. It's all over the news." My mind raced as I processed the information. I had to admit, a part of me felt vindicated. Here was the man who had infiltrated my life, the man who had betrayed my trust, now facing the consequences of his actions. I couldn't help but think of Melissa and how she had justified her affair, claiming it was just a harmless friendship. Ryan continued, "They're saying he's going to be facing an investigation. It's wild, man." As the days went by, I found myself drawn to news articles and social media discussions surrounding Dr. Henderson's situation. It seemed like a tidal wave had hit the academic community, and I was at the center of it, albeit on the sidelines. I read about the students coming forward, sharing their stories, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of justice. But then I started to think about Melissa. How was she processing this? Was she grappling with the reality of what she had done? I knew I had to reach out, not because I felt sorry for her, but because I needed her to realize that this was a direct consequence of her choices. I sent her a text, keeping it simple. "I heard about Dr. Henderson." Her response was immediate and somewhat defensive. "Yeah, I saw the news. It's awful, but it doesn't change anything between us." I couldn't help but laugh at her denial. "Doesn't change anything? Seriously, you were involved with him." "I told you it was a mistake," she shot back. "I can't believe you're bringing this up now." "Maybe it's time to reflect on your decisions," I replied, feeling a sense of empowerment with each word. "You went through with this knowing he had an impact on your life. Now look where it's led you, right back to crossroads." Silence hung between us for a moment, and I was convinced she was weighing her next words carefully. "You think you're better than me now, don't you?" "No, Melissa. I'm different, and I'm better for myself. This isn't about competition. It's about recognizing the consequences of your choices. I hope you find what you're looking for." That conversation lingered in my mind for days. I wasn't sure if she was capable of understanding the gravity of what she had done, but I felt relieved that I had stood my ground, taking the high road while still acknowledging the reality of our past. As I prepared for my date with Ava, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. I was stepping into a new relationship while still grappling with the aftermath of my previous one. But I was determined to keep moving forward. I wanted to embrace the future, and if Ava was part of that, I was ready to explore where it might lead. When the night finally arrived, I found myself at the bar, waiting for Ava. I could feel the butterflies in my stomach as I replayed our conversations in my mind. I was no longer the man defined by betrayal. I was a man on a mission, ready to make my mark. When she walked in, I was taken aback by how radiant she looked. Ava wore a simple yet elegant dress that accentuated her figure, with her hair cascading over her shoulders. The moment our eyes met, all nerves melted away. We chatted easily, sharing stories, laughter, and hopes for the future. As the night unfolded, I could feel a genuine connection blossoming between us. I finally began to understand what a healthy relationship could look like, one built on trust and mutual respect. As we toasted to new beginnings, I realized that I was ready to embrace this new chapter of my life fully. I had gone from being a man betrayed to a man reborn. I was moving forward with intention, building the life I wanted, and I was excited about the path ahead. Little did I know, my journey was just beginning and the best was yet to come. As I sat across from Ava, a feeling of warmth enveloped me. We had spent hours laughing and sharing stories, and the chemistry between us was undeniable. I could hardly believe how effortlessly we connected, and with each passing moment I felt myself letting go of the weight of my past. I was no longer defined by my heartbreak. I was standing on the precipice of something beautiful. The night ended with a gentle kiss, a promise of what was to come. I walked Ava to her car, feeling lighter than I had in ages. As I watched her drive away, I couldn't help but smile. For the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful. It was exhilarating to think that I was finally moving forward, ready to embrace a new chapter in my life. In the days that followed, Ava and I continued to grow closer. We studied together, collaborated on projects, and spent late nights discussing everything from our passions to our dreams for the future. She brought out the best in me, and I found myself inspired to push my limits. I was fully engrossed in my master's program, and my grades reflected my dedication. I began to gain recognition for my projects, and opportunities started pouring in. But just as everything seemed to be falling into place, an unexpected phone call disrupted my newfound happiness. It was Ryan again, and his tone was grave. "Jake, you need to sit down. I have some news about Melissa." My heart raced and a knot formed in my stomach. "What is it?" "It seems Dr. Henderson's situation is escalating. There are now more allegations coming forward, and it's becoming a media frenzy. People are connecting the dots, and it looks like Melissa is being dragged into the spotlight." I felt a surge of conflicting emotions. On one hand, I couldn't help but feel a sense of justice. On the other hand, I didn't want to see her suffer. "What do you mean? Is she in trouble?" "Not legally, but her name is being mentioned in various news articles as someone who was involved with him. It's causing quite the stir at her workplace, too. People are talking, and it's not good." I took a moment to process this information. Melissa had made her choices, and now those choices were coming back to haunt her. "I appreciate you letting me know, Ryan. I don't know what to think." "Look, man, I'm not saying you should feel sorry for her, but you might want to reach out. At the very least, you could offer some support if she needs it." I weighed his words carefully. Part of me wanted to distance myself completely from my past, but another part of me felt a flicker of compassion. I knew that Melissa was facing a difficult situation, and despite everything that had happened, I didn't want to see her completely fall apart. So I decided to send her a message. I kept it short and to the point. "Hey, I heard about Dr. Henderson. If you need to talk, I'm here." Her response was immediate, almost frantic. "Jake, I don't know what to do. This is a nightmare. I thought I could handle it, but now everyone is talking about me at work. I'm scared." I hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to respond. I had my own feelings to navigate, but I couldn't ignore the pain she was experiencing. "I can't imagine how difficult this is for you. But remember, you made choices that led you here. You need to take responsibility for those decisions." There was silence on the other end for a few moments before she replied. "I know. I didn't think it would come to this. I just feel so lost, Jake." It was in that moment that I realized I had a choice to make. I could choose to gloat over her misfortune, or I could extend a hand, not as her husband, but as someone who had once cared for her deeply. "If you want to grab coffee and talk through this, I'm open to it. Sometimes sharing can help." Her response came quickly, and I could feel the desperation in her words. "Yes, please. I really need someone to talk to." We arranged to meet at the same cafe where we had confronted each other months earlier. As I walked in, I prepared myself for the conversation ahead. I had no idea how she would react, especially given the turmoil she was facing. When I saw her, she looked different. The confident woman I once knew seemed diminished. Her eyes were puffy and her shoulders drooped under the weight of her anxiety. I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. "Hey," I said softly, taking a seat across from her. "How are you holding up?" "I feel like everything is falling apart," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I never meant for it to get this bad. I thought I could keep it under control." I listened as she vented about the gossip at work, the judgmental stares, and the whispers that followed her everywhere she went. It was clear that the fallout of her affair was more than just professional. It was deeply personal. "I just wish people understood that I made a mistake and it wasn't supposed to blow up like this," she said, her frustration palpable. Melissa, life doesn't always give us the luxury of control. Your choices have consequences and now you're facing them, but it's not too late to learn from this. You can still pick up the pieces. She looked at me, her expression a mix of vulnerability and anger. You make it sound so easy. How can you be so composed when I'm falling apart? I took a breath, grounding myself. Because I chose to take my pain and turn it into something positive. I'm not saying it's easy. Trust me, I've been through hell too, but I've taken that pain and used it to fuel my ambitions. I'm in a master's program now and I'm pursuing my dreams. Her eyes widened slightly and I could see a flicker of admiration beneath the surface. You've really turned your life around, haven't you? It's a work in progress, I replied. But I've realized that the only way to move forward is to take charge of your life. You can't let your past define you, Melissa. You're stronger than you think. We talked for hours, and as she opened up about her fears, I could see the walls she had built around herself beginning to crumble. I wasn't there to absolve her of her mistakes, but I wanted her to know that there was hope on the other side. By the time we parted ways, I felt a mix of exhaustion and relief. I had offered her a glimpse of the path forward, and perhaps she would find the strength to walk it. As I left the cafe, I recognized that this encounter wasn't just about her. It was also about me. I had learned to navigate my pain and grow from it, and I hoped she could do the same. But as we both ventured back into our respective lives, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just another chapter in our story. We had once shared a life together, and though it was filled with heartache, it had also shaped who we had become. I was ready to embrace the future, and I hoped she would find her own way through the darkness. With Ava by my side and my academic journey ahead of me, I was poised to turn the page and write a new chapter, one defined by resilience, growth, and a renewed sense of purpose. Little did I know, the road ahead would be filled with more surprises and challenges than I could have ever anticipated. The days turned into weeks, and the world felt like it was shifting beneath my feet. After my coffee with Melissa, I noticed a tangible change in my perspective. While it was important to acknowledge the past, I was determined not to let it define my future. I embraced my newfound clarity, focusing on my studies, my job, and most importantly, my relationship with Ava. As we continued to spend time together, my feelings for Ava deepened. She was everything I had been missing in my life, supportive, kind, and genuinely interested in my dreams. We often had long discussions about our aspirations, and I admired her ambition as she pursued her own career in tech marketing. It felt like we were building something substantial together, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was finally where I belonged. One evening, as we were working on a project together, I decided to take a leap of faith. Ava, I said, hesitating for a moment, I want to make this official. I really like you and I think we have something special. She paused, her eyes brightening with surprise and delight. Jake, I feel the same way. I've been hoping you'd say that. It was a relief to hear those words spoken aloud. We both smiled, and in that moment I felt a wave of warmth wash over me. Our relationship wasn't just about moving on from Melissa. It was about embracing a future filled with possibility. As the semester progressed, I poured myself into my studies, and my hard work began to yield results. I was not only excelling academically, but I was also gaining recognition for my innovative projects. One day, during a class presentation, my professor approached me afterward. Jake, I think you have a bright future ahead of you. I'd like to recommend you for an internship at a leading tech company. They're looking for someone with your skills. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. This was an opportunity I had only dreamed of, and it felt surreal to know that my hard work was being recognized. I accepted the internship with enthusiasm, knowing it could be a significant stepping stone in my career. But as my life began to take off, I still had lingering thoughts about Melissa. Part of me wondered how she was coping with the fallout from Dr. Henderson's scandal. I had not heard from her since our cafe meeting, and I hoped she was using this as a chance to reflect and grow. Then, one evening, I received a text that made my heart skip. It was from Melissa. Hey, Jake. I just wanted to say thank you for talking to me the other day. Things have been really tough, but I'm trying to make changes in my life. I've decided to go to therapy and focus on myself. I was surprised by her message and found myself feeling a sense of relief. I'm glad to hear that, Melissa. It's a brave step. I hope you find what you're looking for. Her response was immediate. I know I made mistakes and I don't expect your forgiveness, but I hope someday you can understand that I'm trying to be better. With those words, I realized that I didn't need to hold onto resentment anymore. I had successfully built a life for myself and moved on from the pain of our past. We all make mistakes, Melissa. The important thing is to learn from them. I wish you all the best on your journey. As I sent the message, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was no longer tethered to my past. I had found closure. I smiled, feeling more at peace than I had in a long time. With my internship underway and my relationship with Ava blossoming, I was on a path that felt authentic and fulfilling. I was living life on my own terms, unafraid to chase my passions and dreams. The pain I had endured had shaped me into a stronger, more resilient person. One weekend, while we were taking a break from studying, Ava surprised me with a picnic in the park. I thought we could unwind and enjoy some fresh air, she said, spreading out a blanket under the sun. As we sat together, laughing and sharing stories, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the journey that had brought me here. As I looked at Ava, I realized that I was no longer looking over my shoulder, haunted by the past. I had embraced my new life and the opportunities it offered. I could see a bright future ahead, filled with love, success, and endless possibilities. In that moment, I understood that life is about more than just the choices we make. It's also about how we respond to the challenges we face. I had chosen to rise above the betrayal and transform my pain into strength. I had emerged as a better version of myself, ready to embrace whatever came next. As we enjoyed our picnic, I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be, right in the heart of my new beginning. I had learned that from the ashes of betrayal, one can rise stronger and more empowered than ever before, and I was ready to take on the world, one step at a time.